3rd March 1915, on board the Kamo Maru. First part, translation by Sri Aurobindo. Solitude, a harsh, intense solitude, and always this strong impression of having been flung headlong into a hell of darkness. Never at any moment of my life, in any circumstances, have I felt myself living in surroundings so entirely opposite to all that I am conscious of as true, so contrary to all that is the essence of my life. Sometimes, when the impression and the contrast grow very intense, I cannot prevent my total submission from taking on a hue of melancholy, and the calm and mute converse with the Master within is transformed for a moment into an invocation that almost supplicates. O Lord, what have I done that Thou hast thrown me thus into the sombre night? But immediately the aspiration rises, still more ardent. Spare this being all weakness, suffer it to be the docile and clear-eyed instrument of Thy work, whatever that work may be. For the moment, the clear-sightedness is lacking. Never was the future more veiled. It is as though we were moving towards a high, impenetrable wall, so far as the destiny of individual men is concerned. As for the destinies of nations and of the earth, they appear more distinctly. But of these it is useless to speak. The future will reveal them clearly to all eyes, even of the most blind. 4th March 1915. Always the same harsh solitude, but it is not painful. On the contrary, in it more clearly than ever is revealed the pure and infinite love in which the whole earth is immersed. By this love all lives and is animated. The darkest shadows become almost translucent to let its streams flow through, and the intensest pain is transformed into potent bliss. Each turn of the propeller upon the deep ocean seems to drag me further away from my true destiny, the one best expressing the divine will. Each passing hour seems to plunge me again deeper into that past with which I had broken, sure of being called to new and vaster realizations. Everything seems to draw me back to a state of things totally contrary to the life of my soul, which reigns uncontested over outer activities. And despite the apparent sadness of my own situation, The consciousness is so firmly established in a world which passes beyond personal limitations on every side that the whole being rejoices in a constant perception of power and love. In the material actuality, tomorrow lies dark and unreadable. No light, not even the faintest, reveals to my bewildered gaze any indication, any presence of the divine. But something in the depths of consciousness turns to the invisible and sovereign witness and tells him, "Thou dost not plunge me, O Lord, into the thickest darkness. This means that thou hast established thy light so firmly in me that thou knowest it will stand this perilous ordeal. Otherwise, wouldst thou have chosen me for the descent into the vortex of this hell as thy torch-bearer? Wouldst thou have judged my heart strong enough not to fail, my hand firm enough not to tremble? And yet my individual being knows how weak and powerless it is when thou dost not manifest thy presence. It is more denuded than most people who do not know or care for thee. In thee alone lies its strength and ability. If thou art pleased to make use of it, nothing will be too difficult to accomplish, no task too vast and complex. But if thou shouldst withdraw, just a poor child is left, capable only of nestling in thy arms and sleeping there in the sweet, dreamless sleep where nothing else exists but thou. 7th March 1915. It is past, the time of sweet mental silence, so peaceful, so pure, through which could be felt the profound will expressing itself in its all-powerful truth. Now the will is no longer perceived, and the mind once more necessarily active analyzes, classifies, judges, chooses, constantly reacts as a transforming agent upon everything that is imposed on the individuality, grown wide enough to be in contact with a world infinitely vast and complex, a world of mingled light and shadow, like all that belongs to the earth. I am exiled from every spiritual happiness, and of all ordeals, this, O Lord, is surely the most painful that thou canst impose. But most of all, the withdrawal of thy will, which seems to be a sign of total disapprobation. Strong is the growing sense of rejection, and it needs all the ardor of an untiring faith to keep the external consciousness thus abandoned to itself from being invaded by an irremediable sorrow. But it refuses to despair. It refuses to believe that the misfortune is irreparable. It waits with humility in an obscure and hidden effort and struggle for the breath of thy perfect joy to penetrate it again. And perhaps each of its modest and secret victories is a true help brought to the earth. If it were possible to come definitively out of this external consciousness, to take refuge in the divine consciousness. But that thou hast forbidden, and still and always thou forbidst it. No flight out of the world. The burden of its darkness and ugliness must be borne to the end, even if all divine succor seems to be withdrawn. I must remain in the bosom of the night and walk on without compass, without beacon light, without inner guide. I will not even implore thy mercy, for what thou willst for me, I too will. All my energy is intention solely to advance, always to advance step after step, despite the depth of the darkness, despite the obstacles of the way, and whatever comes, O Lord, it is with a fervent and unchanging love that thy decision will be welcomed. Even if thou findest the instrument unfit to serve thee, the instrument belongs to itself no more. It is thine. Thou canst destroy or magnify it. It exists not in itself. It wills nothing. It can do nothing without thee. The second part of this prayer, translation by Sri Aurobindo. 8th March 1915. Translation by Sri Aurobindo. For the most part, the condition is one of calm and profound indifference. The being feels neither desire nor repulsion, neither enthusiasm nor depression, neither joy nor sorrow. It regards life as a spectacle in which it takes only a very small part. It perceives its actions and reactions, conflicts and forces as things that at once belong to its own existence, which overflows the small personality on every side, and yet to that personality are altogether foreign and remote. But from time to time a great breath passes, a great breath of sorrow, of anguished isolation, of spiritual destitution. One might almost say the despairing appeal of earth abandoned by the divine. It is a pang as silent as it is cruel, a sorrow submissive, without revolt, without any desire to avoid or pass out of it, and full of an infinite sweetness, in which suffering and felicity are closely wedded. Something infinitely vast, great and deep, too great, too deep perhaps to be understood by men, something that holds in it the seed of tomorrow.